Hello everybody, this is Curtis Spivey with Team ABU Games, back with another Bargain Budget build. We are going to start with the creatures today for something that I'm calling Budget Graveyard Golgari. So one of the cool creatures that I have in here that I like with so much graveyard recursion, we keep seeing all these streamers posting, there's phoenixes flying around everywhere. We got to take care of them. So let's start with the number one, the first one drop. We've got two Deadeye Trackers. This card has been overperforming for me because for one colorless and a black, you get to exile two target cards from an opponent's graveyard and Deadeye Tracker Explorer. So let's go over Explorer because that's kind of a minor sub-theme of this deck. He cost one black to cast and we've got ourselves a pirate, a human pirate at that. So when you explore, and this is repeatable when you exile two cards from the opponent's graveyard, you can reveal the top card of your library and then you put that card from your hand. You put that card into your hand if it's a land, otherwise you put it into the graveyard if it's anything else, or leave it on top of your deck and this gets a +1/+1 counter. It won't get that +1/+1 counter if it's a land, but that's card advantage and you're helping your opponent's graveyard get minimized. There's so many decks using the graveyard right now. These jumpstart cards are so big, it's really important to have something. Because we're using the graveyard, let's go to the next one. We've got the Stitcher Supplier. Kind of seeing a lot more play in Modern right now than Standard, but this card is a boss at filling up your graveyard. For one black, we get a 1/1 zombie, and when Stitcher Supplier enters the battlefield or dies, put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard. So you're going to see this is more of a graveyard interactive deck than just a normal green-black Golgari that you've seen. This can actually grind out those decks because you can use the same cards they do, but we have a lot more recursion. So one of those other recursive pieces we have, using from the new guilds, is a Glowspore Shaman. This is a 3/1 elf for 1 black and 1 green, and elf shaman, and when it enters the battlefield, you can put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard, and then you may put a land from your graveyard onto the top of your library. This adds another form of recursion for your deck, and also gives you, because we have a couple utility lands, the ability to put one back on where you can actually kind of loop, and this deck goes really deep on that and finding its pieces because it is so recursive. The next one that's kind of been a standard all-star right now is Seekers Squire. It doesn't look like it at 1 colorless and a black. It's a human scout, 1/2, but when it enters the battlefield, it explores. So again, this is another of that sub-theme explore mechanic, help get your lands in your hand, and just really good for kind of our other cards we have that we'll get to in just a moment here. The next one is I am running one of the Charnel Troll. This is the 1 colorless, a black and a green. He's a troll. What else do you want from that one? He's got trample, and at the beginning of your upkeep, exile a creature card from your graveyard. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on him, otherwise you sacrifice. For a black and a green, discard a creature card, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So this will also help you grow him, but every turn he just gets so big and out of control. He's a 3-drop. Really, we're trying to find good 3-drops in Golgari, and surprise, surprise, it actually wasn't that easy, and just having a one of him has been really good. The next card that's getting seen more in the Golgari decks is Midnight Reaper. This card really is doing some work. It is a zombie knight, it's 2 colorless and 1 black, and whenever a non-token creature you control dies, it deals 1 damage to you and you draw a card. This is another form of recursion. It's a 3/2 creature, so it does really good on the ground as well. It can hold down the fort. And even if they just have to spend a removal spell killing this one, you are still going to end up getting that card draw, which is really important. And the fact that it's 3-drops is going to come up in here in just a moment. The other 3-drop we're running a 4 of that I just love this card so much, I play it in almost everything I can right now, and it's Plaguecrafter. It's 2 colorless and 1 black, and whenever Plaguecrafter enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a creature or planeswalker. Each player who can't discards a card. It's a 3/2. So on its own, sometimes you have to sacrifice that, and nobody wants to do that for this creature, but when you can sacrifice your turn 1 Stitcher Supplier, when you can get rid of the Glowspore Shaman, or something that we can recur here in a moment, it just gives you so much work. And it puts in so much for those control players too, helping them discard. Having this in the main really is going to go a long way from getting rid of that Teferi after they land it. Nothing's more embarrassing. They don't have anything else but a Teferi they untap, and you get to play this and they have to sack the Teferi. Next part in here is 1 Reclamation Sage, 1 more 3-drop. There's just so many enchantments running around and artifacts, especially if they run anything where you see Like the Lich's Mastery deck, they're gonna have to run, they're trying to explore, they're trying to get the lands up as quick as they can, so they're running the Gift of Paradise in there, blowing up a History of Benalia. Anything that's just really important and big right now, it's just so important to have one more sideboard card that can destroy just anything. And we can actually kind of use it twice, and we'll go over that. But Rec Sage, it's a 2/1 Elf Shaman. It's 2 colorless and a green, and when Reclamation Sage enters the battlefield, you may destroy target artifact or enchantment. So again, having just that one main deck utility on that one, and it can be recursive, is really good. How can it be recursive? Well, let's go to the next one, Golgari Findbroker. 2 black and 2 green. This is a 3/4 Elf Shaman, and when it enters the battlefield, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. This card has so many tricks with things that you sacrifice. You can get back a Stitcher Supplier, that's gonna get you another 3 cards in the graveyard. If you milled over something that you didn't mean to mill over, you can bring it back, and we'll kind of go over some bigger pieces for that. It's a 3/4 on its own. It lets you be really recursive. It just does a lot for you. And this card is just putting a lot of work, because this deck does put a ton of cards in the graveyard. Next forward, which kind of become a standard right now, is for Ravenous Chupacabra. It's a 2 colorless and 2 black to cast, Horror Beast, and when it enters the battlefield, destroy target creature an opponent controls, and it's a 2/2. Why did they give us a Necrotal that's this good? And if you don't know what a Necrotal is, that tells you how long I've been playing Magic. In such a long time, they didn't let you destroy anything. It was only non-black. So when I see this to this day, I still have that old fogey thing of, why are you kids getting off my yard? So just remember that. Ravenous Chupacabra is the boss when it comes to taking down creatures. There's Lyris you need to take care of, just anything from the Angels deck, and just being able to keep recurring it too. Like I said, the Findbroker, if it dies, important. Now let's take a look at one of the big boss payoff cards that we have, and it's Izoni Thousand-Eyed. This is 2 colorless, 2 black, and 2 green for 6 total, legendary Elf Shaman, and there's 2 of them in this deck, and it's got Undergrowth. When Izoni Thousand-Eyed enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 black and green insect creature token for each creature card in your graveyard. Such an awesome ability right there. You can go so wide with it, but the part right below it makes it even more awesome. A black and a green, sacrifice another creature, you gain 1 life and draw a card. You can just get life off of this. This is your main deck life gain that you have, since there's nothing else. We will talk about Wildgrowth Walker, and we'll get to it. We do run it, but only in the sideboard. And kind of the nice thing about this is when you sacrifice that, you can sacrifice any of your creatures if you do need to be recursive. And let's kind of go over like why we put that in. We can go ahead and talk about Molderhulk. This card looks so unassuming, and when we talk about 9 mana, normally a card is not playable. This one's variable playable though. It's 7 colorless, a black and a green, and Undergrowth. This spell costs 1 colorless less to cast for each creature card in your graveyard. When Molderhulk enters the battlefield, return target land from your graveyard to the battlefield. We've already seen how recursive we can be with cards. This is just a 6/6 threat that if it dies, we can end up getting it back. And I do run 3 Memorial to Follies. We'll talk about that. That's a way that when you sacrifice it to put it back into play, you can literally put this right back into play after that. So if they keep killing your 6/6, you can keep putting it back. This can fight through a Lyra on its own. This can make sure you're pushing through damage. You have your Chupacabras. It's really good versus the Angel deck, and it can really stonewall this. And all with a budget around $50, that's pretty awesome to say it can take care of. Now, let's go ahead and move on to the spells, because we do have a total of 5 spells. We're running 2 Necrotic Wound. We're going back with the Undergrowth theme. It costs 1 black and it's an instant. Target creature gets -X until end of turn, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. If that creature would die this turn, exile it instead. So this card got added in kind of late and through a lot of play testing, and the reason why, it's called Advanto Vanguard. That card is a 1/1 that you cannot kill. That, a lot of decks struggle, a lot of control decks just fold to it. Our deck needs some way to take care of it, and Necrotic Wound will give it minuses, so it just can't gain Indestructible for 4 life being paid. Plus there's just a whole mass of creatures you can kill late game. If you have 4 in your graveyard, 5 in your graveyard, it comes a point where there's not an amount of creatures that you couldn't kill with this. So we do run 2 in the main. Now, the whole theme behind this deck, well, I kind of got the idea wondering how good this card could be. We've got Gruesome Menagerie. 3 colorless, 2 black, we've got a sorcery, and it is choose a creature card with converted mana cost 1 in your graveyard, then do the same for 2, and then 3, and return these creatures to the battlefield. This gives you so much gas. You can block out early, you can make trades that look awful for you, and then just keep bringing things back. The reason why we're not trying to run too many creatures, or actually only a total of, looks like 10 total that we have that are over that 4, is because all those other creatures are gonna bring us kind of that finale there. The Findbroker can get back anything else. The Ravenous Chupacabra can shoot down something when you get that level and you can clear the board. So those are the stabilizers after you put these small creatures out. And if some of them just get too big, you can just take over the game. But this card's so good at catching you up, puts 3 different cards in, and you can pick any of the 1, 2, and 3s I put in just to make sure we have it. Now let's go ahead and move on to the lands. We've got 23, got 7 forests, 2 Golgari Guildgates, 3 Memorial to Folly, and let's talk about Memorial to Folly. This enters the battlefield tapped, so it's another tap land like the Guildgate that's also green-black, but this just puts in black, and for 2 colorless of black, sacrifice Memorial to Folly, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So all those creatures that already gained you value, that already got removed, that we need to put back, like maybe you milled all your Izonis and you need to hit that big filler at the end, you can keep bringing this back. It just gives you a recursive element. This card's so good in the deck. But we are running a lot of tap lands and we do not want to have to run that many, so we cut down a lot. So from here, we've got 2 Overgrown Tombs. I think it's really important right now that if you're not building up your collection for your shocks or you don't have them before, to get a couple in here, call them shocks because that's what damage a shock does. And these are shock lands, and this is the green-black one. And to round us out, we have 9 swamps because we are black heavy over anything else. Now let's go ahead and move on to the sideboard to finish this out. We've got 4 Duress. Duress is just gonna take care of these control decks. Like we can really go full grind on there. With this, we can make sure that they can't remove our creatures, settle the wreckages. If we have any kind of wraths, we can take it. It's just such a good catch-all. 4 of, love having it in standard. 1 black removes anything other than a creature or land from their hand. And it's sorcery speed, it's so awesome. Went over Necrotic Wounds already, but we got 2 more in here to round out for removal heavy decks. If we do need to put another 2-drop in the deck, we've got a couple of them. We've got Kraul Harpooner. It's got a reach. It's an insect warrior for 1 green and 1 colorless. It's already a 3/2 to start, but when it enters the battlefield with that undergrowth, this gets +X+0, where X is the number of creatures in your graveyard, and then you may have it fight that creature. So this can take down Lyras, this can take down any of the angels, which may be a problem for a lot of other decks. Ours doesn't really have a big problem with creatures. We can take care of anything, and this is just another one to put in if you do face the angels. From here, we've got 3 Wildgrowth Walker. This is really for mono red. I tried it in the main and there was just too many times like it just didn't matter. A 1/3 is so good, but it's a 1 colorless, a 1 green for a 1/3. It's an elemental, and whenever you explore a creature you have, put a +1/+1 counter on this and you gain 3 life. So this thing gets out of reach from burn decks. It gets so big that no one can fight through it. So if you do need to have the red decks or just need to have something where you're more life gain or you're burning yourself out, this is another awesome 2-drop. From there, because white weenie decks have got really big, or even the Boros ones, we've got 2 Plague Mares. This is a 1 colorless and 2 black. It's a Nightmare Horror, and when it enters the battlefield, creatures your opponent control get -1/-1. This can also force awkward blocks, so if there is something where opponent's deck is just a hair bigger, or you just see a bunch of other Explorer creatures, really good to have it. But Plague Mare can't be blocked by white creatures either. It does have more text on this, and it's just a 2/2. This is good when you're just trying to route the board, really good against those white strategies, or anybody that you see that's like with the pump creatures. Bring this in, you can drop it, you have another 3-drop to bring back with the Gruesome too. And the last 2, just for some more reach, we've got some Reclamation Sages. Same thing as before, it's gonna destroy target artifact or enchantment. It's a 2/1. It's so good at just giving you that resilience for if you do run across something where you know they have more that need to be destroyed, enchantments or artifacts. This is just that catch-all to add in. It's another 3-drop. We have more with another Gruesome card right there, so you can keep casting it over and over. So just some awesome things in here. If you like grinding out your opponent and making sure you're playing Golgari with the best of them on here, try the Budget Graveyard deck on there. This is Curtis with Team ABU Games.